Welcome back to Between Two Bs, the official podcast of the B to SMB Institute and our 5,000 plus business to small business professionals. Brian Moran's Small Business Edge podcast reaches 100 plus countries and has engaged 100,000 plus SMBs. We explore AI to SMB readiness and apparent roadblocks with Brian, who believes enterprise AI solutions don't fit small business realities. To move beyond early adopters, we need a playbook. Join us for a tour of that playbook on the Between Two Bs podcast, starting now.
If you sell at scale to small business, you need to be here. The 7th Annual B2SMB Institute Leaders Forum, May 14th and 15th in Sonoma, gathers business to small business executives from dozens of major brands to talk shop. The winning, keeping, and growing of SMB customers. Our 2025 B2SMB Institute Leaders Forum extends the central theme of our 2024 events, selling successfully in a small business marketplace that's seen extraordinary growth and change in the last 2 years. Combining keynotes from B2SMB sales superstars with frequent small-sided breakouts, the 2025 Leaders Forum presents research-based insights, best practice playbooks, and a steady dialogue of shared wisdom on winning, keeping, and growing SMB customers. Our B2SMB Institute Leaders Forum sold out these last 2 years, so it's not too early to save your spot at our top-to-top networking and strategy exchange for senior B2SMB execs. Get your tickets today at b2smbi.com/leadersforum25. Are you ready to master the new sell? Join us for the 6th Annual Leaders Forum in Sonoma, hosted by the B2SMB Institute. Tickets now on sale for the B2SMB Institute 2025 Leaders Forum. Members attend free. Email info@b2smbi.com for more information.
Hey everybody, Dave Walker here with the B2SMB Institute, and we are back for another episode of the Between Two Bs podcast, and I am welcoming an old friend. And by an old friend, I mean I've known him for many years. Not that he is old. He is significantly younger than I am sure. But Brian Moran of Small Business Edge. Welcome, Brian.
Dave, thanks so much for having me. I'm a big fan of you, and I'm a big fan of this podcast.
I appreciate that. And as we have been talking about a number of things over the last few weeks, we realize that when we get to yakking, there's actually a lot of good stuff that potentially comes out. But the reason why I wanted you to come here with your experience of having broadcast the small business message of Small Business Edge to 100 plus countries, you've touched probably 100,000 plus small business lives in helping them improve their capabilities. I can't think of anybody better to just kind of stop for a moment with me and talk a little bit about the impact and the opportunity and the challenge of AI as it relates to small businesses. So let's just kick it off by getting your perspective as you're dialoguing with small businesses on a daily basis. How frequently does the subject of AI come up, and how frequently are they asking you for advice on, gee, Brian, how do I look at this? How do I actually use this? Where's kind of the state of the market is from your unique perspective?
Yeah, it's a fad. It'll be over by the end of the year.
There's a lot of puckering that just went on amongst our listeners.
Let me tell you. So the interesting thing, Dave, is I actually did a podcast back in 2019 with a gentleman named Tom Malone, Professor Tom Malone from MIT. He's the founder of the Center for Collective Intelligence at MIT. And he came out with a book in 2019 called Superminds, The Surprising Power of People and Computers Working Together, or Humans and Computers Working Together. We talked all about AI. I mean, and this guy's brilliant. If I could get him back on my podcast, I'd do it in a heartbeat, but he's probably being pulled in about 100 different directions. So AI has actually been on my radar for some time now. And I've done a number of podcasts about it. But when it hit mainstream, like 2023, I remember my son, who was in IT, said to me, Dad, this is going to be bigger than the internet. And I laughed and
Mm-hmm.
I go, Gene, really? Really? And he said, yeah, it's going to disrupt every company in every single industry. So I
Mm-hmm.
would learn as much as I possibly could about it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years and talking to him a lot. But it comes up quite a bit with some of my clients and some small business owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mid-sized companies. But as I was just telling you offline, there are millions of business owners who will be indirectly and directly affected by it, but pay no mind to it. I had a plumber at my house this morning fixing my kitchen sink. He's 66 years old. He's been doing this for 40 years. He has zero interest in AI.
Mm-hmm.
And he's brilliant at what he does. The guy fixed something that I didn't think was fixable, charged me a reasonable rate, doesn't accept Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, none of it. He said cash or check, doesn't even take credit cards. And I said to him, I go, I love you. You are so old school. Like you love what you do and you're great at it. And the one thing he does is the local Facebook moms page. And he said he gets more business out of that than anything he could ever imagine. And he never wants for business.
It's funny because he probably doesn't recognize that he is actually kind of part of a digital revolution that began back in the early 2000s, the adoption of social media and that way
Yeah.
of kind of spreading word of mouth business. But to your point, if you asked him, "Hey, would you be interested in working with me to kind of develop some specific applications of AI products or services in your business?" He'd go, "No, not
Zero,
even close,
zero
not even
interest, Dave.
close."
He had three 5-star Google reviews that were so well written. And I
Mhm.
said, how come you don't have more? I hate those. I tell people don't write them. Don't write them. I don't need them. I mean, I can think of 2 dozen people like that I work with in my life
Yeah,
personally
yeah.
that are just artisans. They're part of that 18th century artisans society, right? The blacksmith and the
Yep.
tool maker, and the people who were real craftsmen at their work,
Mhm.
and were known by being the best blacksmith,
Mhm.
and at a very local level. And they were great at what they did, and everything was done by word of mouth. You still have millions of businesses that operate that way.
Yeah, no doubt. But do you think that's more I mean, not to make too much of the fact that he's a plumber, he's 66 years of age, he's been doing it, one particular way successfully. Do you think that more largely, are there more small businesses now that are awakened to the the potential of technology? And I'm specifically thinking of COVID and how
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I complained at the time that too much was being written about digital transformation. And I said, I don't think that e-commerce constitutes digital transformation. But,
Right.
you know, here we are in 2025, and depending on whose number you believe, the 19 to 20 million small businesses that have joined the small business economy since 2021,
Mhm.
the number of Gen Z entrepreneurs, the choice that they're making. I mean, is it fair to say that the vast majority of small businesses are going to be thinking about technology, broadly stated, and specifically are going to be at least open minded to the idea that AI can really help them?
Absolutely. Business is coming into the market today because it's part of the daily conversations that we're having.
Hmm.
But I would say to all of them, take a step back, a
Hmm.
big step back, and first examine what type of business owner do you want to be.
Hmm.
Now, I put business owners into 3 categories. There's the small business owner at one end, there's the entrepreneur at the other end. And unfortunately, those terms are used interchangeably, and they're not. They're actually the farthest thing from having any like mindedness, other than
Hmm.
maybe they're in the same category. It would be like saying that 2 doctors, a pediatrician and a cardiothoracic surgeon, are
Hmm.
the same, right? And they
Hmm.
should be treated the same way. They're very, very different in
Hmm.
the way they practice medicine. But in between the small business owner and the entrepreneur is something I call a passionate business owner.
Hmm.
Now, it's all comes down to mindset, Dave. And this is important because The small business owner, they work to live, right? It's a lifestyle business. It's my plumber. It's my plumber who was just here, loves what he does, but he has hobbies and interests outside of work. And he sees everything, every purchase as an expense.
Mm-hmm.
How much is this going to cost me? Do I need this in my business? Do I need to take credit cards or Venmo or PayPal? Do I need AI in business? If I don't, forget it. I'm going to be able to achieve my goals with what I'm doing right now. Now, the flip side, the entrepreneur, we all know what they look like, right? Every purchase is an investment into their business.
Right.
They're all in on AI. They're all in on growing their business, and they're aspirational. So they're well defined. We know them, and we wish them all the best as they take a rocket ship to wherever it is that they're going. But in between the two is a term that I call passionate business owner. And I'd say they represent about 15 to 20% of the market. Now, we're seeing a lot of businesses that are starting today that I would call passionate business owners, because what they want to do is they want to grow their business. They're willing to make investments into it, but they want to grow it organically and sustainably. And they're willing to use AI. They're willing to make that investment. They don't necessarily want to be that entrepreneur right now, but they also don't want to be the small business owner. They see bigger opportunities, and that's what AI is presenting them. So understanding, Dave, what type of business owner you are is critical when you come to forks in the road. Now, fork in the road could look like this: launch a new product or service, open a new location, hire employees, right? The answer, do I do it? Do I not do it? Most small business owners will say no. Most entrepreneurs will say yes. It's the passionate business owner that's going to run into the tree in the middle of the road because they didn't know which way to go.
Right.
So taking all of that into consideration as the foundation for what type of business you want to run will make it easier to answer the question, how invested do I need to be in AI? Because AI at its core, and I said this to you before, and I'm paraphrasing it, I'm replacing the term mind, like your mind, with AI. AI is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. And if you can see AI as a means to an end, as a tool to help you get to where you want to go in business, that's going to tell you whether or not you need it. So that plumber who was here today, he's going to hit his revenue goal at the end of the year, if he even knows what it is. He just wants to do a little bit better than he did last year and keep his expenses at a minimum. But for the businesses starting out today, before you even discuss AI, look at where you want to be at the end of the year. Where do I want to be at the end of 2025? More likely than not, it's probably a revenue goal, or maybe a number of new clients or new products that I want to launch. And then is when you start to have the conversation about AI. How can AI get me from where I am today, right, to the end of the year? And how is that going to help me get there better, faster, quicker, smarter than anything else that I may use?
From your perspective, then, if the kind of qualities and characteristics that you're describing of a small business and asking that fundamental question of where do you want to be, are the enterprises that sell AI, are they recognizing that should be the starting question? Not just that the business asks of itself, but that they should ask the question. I guess what I'm trying to ask, is there a disconnect between the way in which AI is currently being sold and the way in which AI should actually be adopted within small business?
100%. There's a huge disconnect, which is why everybody's coming to people like me and you. Brian, help me out with this. I'm getting overwhelmed with AI. Like, I don't understand it. Like, do I need to go out and purchase an AI machine, or are people going to start putting this into all of the products and services that I use? Like, where can I read up about it? The people who are selling AI to SMB right now are lumping everybody into the same bucket. And they're not recognizing that this is a tool. This is not the holy grail. It's not. And what you're doing is you're making everybody drink from a fire hose, because AI is developing so rapidly.
Mhm.
You know, what you told people it could do today, in a month from now, that's almost going to be antiquated.
In an hour from now.
Right, right. And so what you're doing to business owners is now they need to take their eye off of what their goal is and their GPS plan on how to get to that goal. And now I got to focus on AI and all of these things that I can incorporate into my business. I would ask the business owners, what is the goal of AI in your business? Is it to make you more productive? Is it to reduce expenses? Is it to give you more time? I mean, business owners, I've never met a business owner who said, I manage my time wonderfully. I would give myself an A plus. I'm the best. I'm a master of time management.
Right, right. Doesn't
It's
happen.
no, they're all this. They're everyone says the same thing. Brian, I would love to learn more about AI, but I don't have the time.
Right.
It's social media 10 years ago. I had these conversations with business owners and they all said, oh man, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, you telling me my customers are there? I can increase brand awareness. I can spy on my competition. I can connect with my existing customers, build
Mhm.
my pipeline. I'd love to do all of that. I just don't have the time because I'm here busy trying to connect with my customers and build my brand. And they were thinking that they didn't see the opportunity, the overlay of social media onto what they were doing,
Mhm.
that it would make this whole job easier
Mhm.
because it wasn't explained to them properly. Somebody just threw out a social media kit and said, buy this, it's $300 a month, and we'll get more likes on Facebook and more followers on Twitter. And they did it and they didn't see any return on investment. And they go, ah, it doesn't work.
Mhm.
My fear is that AI is going to do the same thing to millions of business owners. It's not going to be explained properly. And they're going to lump them into a bucket and say, you need to buy this because it's going to make you more efficient, more productive, more effective. You don't have to hire more employees. It took you hours, will take you minutes, but then somebody's going to screw it up somewhere. You
Yeah,
know,
and I think that other than the internet, which I was, alive and kicking during its birth, it was a slow roll. It didn't exactly happen overnight, but it probably is the best example of that I can think of a technology in the last 30 years that ultimately has really stuck with small business. It has really been something that is invaluable, that is critical. There's too many stories along the way of other technologies. Um, like, do you remember the metaverse? Do you even know what the metaverse is?
yeah,
Too many
yeah.
stories of, just crash and burn, revolutions in technology that had absolutely no play whatsoever among small business. To that kind of end or that point, and this is maybe unpacking in reverse the readiness of small business for taking on AI as really a valuable contributor to their business success. Are the enterprises that sell to small businesses, are they AI to SMB ready? Have they really gotten in place, or are they getting in place not just the ability to experiment with AI in their products and their service offerings, but to actually start to scale it? And I want you to unpack that from the perspective of, if you believe they're not ready, which is what I think you're going to say, okay, what are the areas where they could frankly be more ready to really take this revolution that is AI and turn it into the internet?
We're talking about the business owners themselves, not the companies
No,
targeting
I'm
the
talking
business.
about the companies that sell to the small businesses. I
Yeah.
mean, because I think
Okay.
that I
Okay.
think you're right in that the framework by which a small business should consider AI is purely based on utility.
Yeah.
Is it a tool that can solve for something that I knew needs to get solved? It's on my to-do list.
Right.
The large enterprises, on the other hand, are grinding their way through internal PowerPoint presentations
Right.
and expensive market analysis and consultants, telling them what to do. What
Right. Right.
And I will tell you, maybe you've experienced the same thing in many of the conversations that I've had with leaders in this business to small business space over the course of the last few weeks is kind of two light bulb moments. Light
Mhm.
bulb number one is the realization that, as some put it, we're headed towards an AI cliff. And the AI cliff is basically a Wile E. Coyote moment where we're suddenly, treading air and
Yeah.
realizing that there's a precipice below us because
Yeah.
we've overcommitted in our belief that AI is going to be a huge sales driver. That's number one. But number two is I think probably more important, and that is the realization that we need to move from the stage of experimentation with AI as it's
Mhm.
offered in products and services to small business to scale. We need to basically take the early adopters, who we love. They've been there for every technology wave,
Yeah.
that 10 to 15% that take it on
Yeah.
and give us all that great feedback and establish the beachhead, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But they're not the majority of the market. And
No.
they're not going to pay back that initial investment, whatever that technology advance is.
Right.
So that's the scale that they believe they need to drive towards. So that's a
Right.
long preamble for, I hope that gives you enough to kind of just, give us your diagnosis of what's
Yeah.
happening right now.
Well, is the answer strategic or tactical?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is it going to fundamentally change the way you do business, the way you put together your goals?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the end, for the majority of the market, is they have probably a revenue goal of where they want to be at the end of the year, and they're trying to figure out what tools do I need to achieve that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I want to hit $1 million in my business and I'm figuring that right now I'm going to fall short, I'm going to be about 900,000. Is this AI tool going to get me closer to that $1 million
Mm-hmm.
or $500,000 or whatever that number is? That's the way that most small businesses look at business is that pizza oven going to help me, hit my goal, or is my existing pizza oven good enough for me?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer invariably is the existing oven is better. I can fix it. I'll just replace it. I don't need to spend $15,000, $20,000 on a new oven.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to understand what's keeping most of your audience up at night. What's the fire on their rear end? For
Mm-hmm.
most of them, it's probably finances, it's cash flow, it's finding new customers, right? If you can start to address those needs and say, this tool will help put out that fire. This tool will help your finances like be more organized and more efficient, and it will help you find customers.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it was Theodore Levitt, who was a professor of marketing at Harvard, said nobody ever walked into a hardware store looking for a quarter-inch drill bit. What they want is a quarter-inch hole.
Right.
And so for the companies that are marketing the AI tools to the small businesses. Now, these are small businesses, not entrepreneurs, because that's a whole separate conversation. But for probably the 20 to 23 million business owners that are true small business, you can't sell them on the features of your product. You have to sell them the whole.
Mm-hmm.
You have to sell them the benefit. And you have to understand what it is that they're looking for. What benefits are they looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to explain it to them. And the way you do that is to understand that different businesses, even within the 23 million, have different priorities. Like an inner city business is going to have a very different top 5 priorities than a rural business. And they
Mm-hmm.
could run the exact same pizzeria or nail salon or something to that effect. Main Street business, right? A younger business is going to be different than an older business. So
Mm-hmm.
we have the technology now to segment our audience and our databases and tag them in a way that we can deliver the right message to the right audience at the right time with the right amount of frequency. That's what I would be focusing on. I
Mm-hmm.
would first go, and I would say, by the way, as much as we want to think it's true, AI is not a sprint,
Mm-hmm.
but we're all treating it like it's a 100-yard dash because
Mm-hmm.
it's changing so rapidly. You
Mm-hmm.
have to see the big picture. You have to see that this is a marathon.
Right, right. And talk then a little bit about the entrepreneur, because you said then that's an entirely different story. What's different about the entrepreneurs based on
The
what you just said?
The entrepreneur is seeing everything like a sprint. They have the big picture, but if they have investors and they have, people that they need to answer to, then they are doing everything they can to try and either get or maintain a competitive edge in their market. So they're constantly going to be asked, what are you doing to stay ahead of the competition? How well versed are you in AI? What new markets have you opened? What partnerships have you formed or strategic alliances? How are you growing your business? Now,
Mhm.
AI can definitely help them with that, but you need to have dedicated resources to staying on top of all of the changes that are happening in the marketplace, among your competitors, what new competitors are coming into your market. I mean, your head's on a swivel if you're an entrepreneur today. And
Mhm.
you're also looking to see what other markets you can enter as a result of these tools.
Mhm.
But that's about 5% of the market.
Mhm.
And everybody's identified them. And, I look at, again, the passionate business owners, I see the greatest opportunity
Mhm.
because there is growth there. It's organic, it's sustainable. Get to know those customers and what their challenges are, what their opportunities are, and grow with them. I mean, make them customers for life. That's what we're trying to do, right? I mean,
Mhm.
the companies that are targeting the SMB, B to SMB market, ideally, you'd like to say, I'd like to have a customer life and go through this journey with you. If you treat it as a transaction, if your company is treating this as a numbers game, you're going to be hard pressed to have any kind of real traction in the market because there's always going to be somebody taking your lunch, that went in before you or after you and sold a better bill of goods to that customer and took that business away from you. But if you really do embed yourself into the fabric of your customers, you take time to understand them. It's not a transactional game. I want to help you grow your business. And if I do that, it's a win for me because you then buy more from me. And
Mhm.
and you tell your friends about how great I am to your business.
Mhm. I want to talk to you a little bit about a self-evaluation survey that I posted on LinkedIn and that we kind of broadly distributed amongst our close to 5,000 members. And there's definitely in this five-part survey, which is effectively assessing readiness,
Yeah.
AI to SMB readiness. What's taking shape in the first week's worth of responses is what I would describe as two ends of a spectrum.
Hmm.
And the multiple choice questions were constructed in that kind of classic way of give yourself a point if you answer yes. If you circled A, give yourself 4 points if it's implicit kind of like you're better if
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Sure.
click D all the way down the list. And I do think that feels like some of the respondents basically just circled D because they wanted to feel good about themselves or wanted to impress me or something, even though all of this was anonymous. But I was
Yeah.
surprised that there were as many as there were, and I would say about, good 35 to 40% of the respondents
Yeah.
gave themselves the highest possible marks on the level of market intelligence they had about AI adoption amongst their SMB customers, that
Yeah.
they were, explaining AI very clearly in a very value-driven sort of a way that was very effective with their small business customers, that they had scripted out, the objections that they would hear and how to overcome those objections with, precise things to say. And you get the picture. The other, probably 50%, were far more circumspect and we're kind of more like, well, we're either kind of answering the questions, portraying a kind of we're working on it. We're not down at a four. We're not a one either. We're somewhere between two and three, and
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
figuring out. Now that you mention it, we're just figuring out that there is a higher level of intelligence that we probably need. Um, but I bring it up because I kind of want you to break down from your perspective as you work with a lot of these sometimes Fortune 500 companies that are,
Yeah.
selling products and services to small business. Where do you think they would self-evaluate, self-rate themselves on their AI to SMB readiness? And are there any specific examples? And you don't have to name names necessarily, but do you know of executives, do you know of leaders who really do have their heads on straight, who are kind of like, yeah, there's a lot more for us to do to really kind of understand this marketplace?
I think you would get the same answers
Hmm.
from those Fortune 500 companies that you got in the survey. You know, the ones that say, you know, we are masters of the universe when it comes to understanding AI and
And
our
everybody
customers.
trusts us. That's another big one.
Right. It's like when I do my seminars and I say to people, okay, how many people in this room are entrepreneurs? And Dave, like 90% of the hands go up. And how many are small business owners? And you know, five, right? And I said, well, how many of you are passionate business owners? And they all kind of look around like, what's a passionate business owner? And I explained to them what each level is. And
Hmm.
it's funny. I said, okay, now let's redo that. Okay, how many of you really think you're entrepreneurs? Maybe 10% go up, right? As opposed to 90. But they say, I really like that passionate business owner, you know, because I'm willing to invest. And the fact of the matter is, when you get to the survey, you take those same masters of the universe and you explain to them, like, it's okay not to know everything.
Hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, you don't. You take the Socratic method of, I'm the dumbest person in this room and I ask a lot of questions. And those are the people that I applaud who
Hmm.
come in saying, I don't know anything about AI. Teach me as if I'm a fifth grader. And that's when you find out exactly how much other people know.
Hmm.
And then you fill in, you know, okay, and you learn and you learn. You always want to be learning from people. That's the way you grow. But I would say with the people who are targeting the SMB space, take the Socratic method, ask questions. You know,
Hmm.
people say I'm so smart because I tell them I know nothing and all I do is ask questions.
Hmm.
And that's really where the learning comes in, not from talking to small business owners, SMBs, but to asking them questions. How are they using it? What do they think of it? What, you know, where do they see this taking them? Do they see it as a strategy or a tactic
Hmm.
in business? And where do you think your business will be in 3 and 5 years as a result of all of the changes that AI and automation are going to have in the marketplace and among your competitors and your customers? And that's really where the learning is. Well, you know what's funny, and that we'll have an honest moment here.
Hmm.
I've worked with 50 Fortune 500 companies, right, in my career of being an entrepreneur, and I'm shocked at how many of them don't really know their customers that well.
Right.
Like they don't take the time. I mean, you're selling them product, you're selling them services. Do you ever like sit down and break bread with them to understand how they're using it or what's keeping them up at night or what else you can do to, other than stick a survey in their face and say, fill us out and let us know what else we can do for you, but actually getting to know them. Some of them do it exceptionally well, but I would say, unfortunately, most of them don't. They deal in the aggregate, they have no anecdotes, and they don't understand their customer. And that's where the trust comes from. And what's interesting, Dave, is I think AI is going to make that chasm between the seller and the buyer that much wider.
It certainly has that potential, right? And
Yeah.
probably the same could be said of most technologies. And
Yeah.
as we kind of roll back the tape on the last 20 years or 25 years rather since the advent of the internet, God, there's just way too many examples of new technologies that basically were poorly sold into small business. Either they overpromised and underdelivered, or they were
Right.
never explained in a
Right.
practical way, or they were never fitted to the needs of a small business. And the list goes on and on and on and on of technology advancements that were in the moment. God, everybody was really excited about the metaverse. It's going to revolutionize, the way we do medicine.
Yeah.
We're going to be in virtual operating rooms or 5G. Oh my gosh. 5G is just going to open up the superhighway of connectivity globally for small business. Those promises just don't happen. And I think it embitters most of the seasoned small business owners, even the passionate ones, to
Yeah.
skeptical. And there's definitely the surveys I have seen of small businesses definitely are highlighting that skepticism that small business have.
Yeah. And now in the SMB market, so the people that you deal with, the companies that you're buying from, where are they in the next 3 to 5 years? Have they reduced their staff, their workforce, and replaced it with AI, where we had 1,200 employees and now we have 900 because we were able to implement AI and automate customer service and some IT and sales. And now I talk to a bot instead of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then who's the relationship with? I mean, yeah, you really have to look at that. I mean, we haven't talked about the intangibles of AI and
Mm-hmm.
how they cannot be collateral damage.
Mm-hmm.
I tell that to my clients and my listeners and my readers all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
said, 100%, you cannot go into anything new blindly and
Mm-hmm.
just do full steam ahead. You have to ask questions. You have to ask things like, what does this do to my level of trust with
Mm-hmm.
my customers? So if you are an SMB and you're trying to implement AI and saying, okay, I have 100 employees and I'm going to reduce it to 80
Mm-hmm.
as a result of all of this technology, what happens to trust with your
Mm-hmm.
customers? What happens to your internal company culture? Yeah, that used to be handled by Bob in customer service or Linda in accounting,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's automated.
Right. And I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah. So who am I going to
Honestly.
lunch with?
Right.
Who am I going to lunch with? And when your customer, one of your biggest customers, going, hey, what happened to Linda?
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
let her go.
Exactly.
Call. And what the company didn't even realize was that, what, you could have still hit your goal with
Mm-hmm.
Linda and Bob, but you
Mm-hmm.
were sold this package that said AI is going to make you more cost efficient, more productive, save more time, lower your expenses, increase your revenue. But things happen along the way, and you lost one of your biggest customers because you let go their favorite person in the company.
Or lost lost what really was. I don't know why this comes to mind first, but if Zappos went 100% AI
Oh
in their
my
customer
God.
service, it would be an absolute disaster because it is very much the very human and very personality filled people who you
Yeah,
interact with from Zappos that makes it your favorite place to get shoes.
that's a great example.
Unquestionably your greatest, and you would lose that. Um, do you believe now in 2025, in April of 2025, that your son was right, that ultimately AI is going to be bigger than the internet in its impact basically on business? We've described a lot of growing pains, a lot of early stage, I would argue, a lot of early stage things that existed with every technology advance that's hit small business. But do you believe that ultimately it's going to be as huge as your son thought it was going to be?
Yes, I do, because if we are really looking at this the way we looked at the internet, AI is still in dial-up mode.
Hmm.
I mean, remember what happened when we were introduced to broadband, right? And then we're
We all
introduced
went
to,
nuts.
introduced to the smartphone,
Right.
right? And so that's what's going to happen with AI. I
Yeah.
mean, look at just how much has changed in a year,
Yeah.
how much AI has impacted our lives. I use it on my phone. I got to tell you, and it's funny. I'm going to quote somebody, Richard Werman. It was
Hmm.
the founder of the TED conferences, and I've
Hmm.
known him for a dozen years at least. And I get to interview him every 6 to 8 weeks or talk to him. We call it talking, and he does this. I send the tapes to his archivist, but he's been on my podcast, and he's known as the father of information architecture.
Hmm.
And I'm going to give a quote. He said, one of the most anxiety inducing side effects of the information era. Now, this is pre internet, Dave.
Right. Right.
So, one of the most anxiety inducing side effects of the information era is the feeling that you have to know it all.
Right. So true. So true.
And he followed that up with this. He said, information anxiety. And he wrote a book called Information Anxiety. He actually wrote 2 editions of it. Now I think he's writing his third. But it's information anxiety is the black hole between data and knowledge. And it happens when information doesn't tell us what we want or need to know.
Hmm.
So when I talked to him, the last time I spoke with him was about a month ago. I asked him about AI. And he said it can be the greatest thing or it can be a murder weapon.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In a nutshell.
And it's not hard to, as a practical matter. I was thinking terms now of how would you frame this question to AI, to like Claude or Chat GPT? And
Yeah.
the framing of the question would be describe two different scenarios where AI is ultimately harmful to humanity or ultimately helpful to humanity. And
Yeah.
give me the counterpart to show me what those two paths look like. And I bet you that would be really interesting because you can make arguments, frankly, for both.
Yes.
I think that I'm glad you're as bullish as I am on what the future of AI is. And I do think it's absolutely appropriate, as you said, to look. Let's go back in history and look at what happened with the internet, and look at what happened with the early stages of dial-up and that awful sound that AOL made, from your modem. Let's go to
Yes.
the, when broadband became existent, when the smartphone came into existence, when gaming basically moved into being something you did from cartridges and discs. You were suddenly doing it online and you were doing it in
Right.
groups. And TikTok came along and on and on and on. There's so many different phases of technology advancement within the internet that have transformed it. So just overlay that on top of AI and recognize we're in the stage of AI where comparable on the internet where it was like, remember those really ugly whole earth catalog sites that were
Yeah.
on the internet early on? That was
Yes.
e-commerce.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
boraxy and ugly as you could possibly imagine. That's kind of where we're at right now. And I feel like it still, though, is incumbent upon those who are the creators, the producers, the sellers of this technology to really run in parallel to these advancements and make sure that the lesson that they've ultimately learned is explanation, explanation, communication, drive home the value proposition, et cetera, and that will hopefully win the day. This has been
Yes.
absolutely terrific, as I knew it would be. I appreciate your perspective. I think that there's so much more. We should do this, probably every quarter. We should just sit down and say, okay, where are we now? Where do we believe we
Yeah.
really are now? Just the topic of readiness. I think 2025, I've kind of made it the mission of the Institute, help our community get better ready to actually deploy their AI, to sell their AI, to explain their AI, to build upon their AI, all of those things.
Abs- Absolutely. Dave, if I could leave your listeners and viewers with just one piece of advice, treat this as an ongoing relationship that you have with your existing customers and your prospects.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know that you're in this for the long haul. You're not selling them a transaction, but you're taking this journey together. You're going to take this journey of exploration and how you can apply it to your business, knowing that different people buy your product or service for different reasons. So somebody buys it for quality, somebody buys it for maintenance, somebody buys it for price, somebody buys it for the customer experience that they get, right? So you probably have at least 6 or 8 personas of customer buyers. You would treat them differently, right? When you're talking about your relationships with them and growth with them. Do the same thing with AI. Really get to know it, because again, we're in the dial-up phase of AI. What we see now and what we see a year from now, completely different. And that's really to your listeners and your viewers' advantage. Just letting their customers know that this is going to really, I mean, you're going to get whiplash if you try and follow this all in real time. So let us help you on our journey together
Mm-hmm.
learn how to incorporate AI so that you can achieve your goals.
Yep,
Right? Tell me
exactly.
what your goals are. Let us help you achieve them, and we'll explain it in a way that you understand. And now I'm selling you a 1/4 inch hole and not a 1/4 inch drill bit.
Right. Great analogy, by the way. I love that. I love that little phrase. Thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I love everything you're doing. Please keep up the great work. Please, when you ever invite me to anything, I'll be there. So whether it's a podcast or a gathering, I love the work you're doing. Keep it up and let me know how I can help.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode of Between Two Bs, the official podcast of the B2SMB Institute and our 5,000 plus business to small business professionals. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes, the crossroads of the big B and the small B, Between Two Bs, on your favorite streaming services.